The day I accidentally soaked Ethan Cross with soapy water, I thought I'd lost my job. I never imagined that spilling cleaning water on a billionaire suit would lead me to the love of my life, and the most devastating betrayal I never saw coming. The morning sun streamed through the massive glass panels of Cross Industries' lobby as Maya Santos adjusted her earbuds and dipped her sponge into the cleaning solution. At 24, she had perfected the art of invisible work in this world of expensive suits and important meetings. The giant aquarium in the center of the lobby was her favorite task, not because it was easy, but because it gave her a few minutes of contemplative peace before the day became a rush of offices, bathrooms, and conference rooms. Maya was absorbed in cleaning the aquarium's glass surface when fate decided to intervene. She didn't hear the hurried footsteps approaching until it was too late. The sudden presence in her peripheral vision startled her, causing her to step back instinctively. Her foot caught on the bucket of soapy water she'd positioned behind her, and 3 liters of cleaning solution spilled directly into the path of the approaching figure. Ethan Cross had been running late for yet another family meeting. At 30, the rebellious heir to the Cross Empire was more focused on the conflicts awaiting him than his surroundings. He'd spent the morning on the phone with a supplier exploiting workers in inhumane conditions, the kind of conversation his older brother Richard considered sentimental time-wasting, but which Ethan couldn't ignore. The collision happened in what felt like slow motion. Water and soap cascaded across the marble floor, soaking the lower half of Ethan's expensive suit. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Maya saw a tall man with the kind of elegant bone structure that seemed carved by Renaissance artists. But what struck her most were his eyes. Instead of the anger she expected, there was genuine surprise, almost amusement. Ethan saw a woman with delicate features framed by rebellious strands of chestnut hair, her brown eyes wide with horror, radiating an intelligence and vulnerability that made him forget completely about his ruined suit.
"I'm so sorry," Maya stammered, her cheeks burning with shame. "I didn't see you coming. I was distracted with the aquarium and—" "It's okay," Ethan interrupted gently, his voice carrying the educated accent of expensive private schools. "It was just an accident." But their moment of mutual understanding was shattered by an explosion of laughter from the executive elevator entrance. Richard Cross had chosen exactly this moment to descend to the lobby, accompanied by 3 board directors. The scene they encountered, the company's youngest heir soaked in cleaning water, standing next to a mortified janitor, was the kind of situation Richard found simultaneously humiliating and hilarious. "My God, Ethan," Richard laughed, his voice echoing through the marble lobby. "You can't even walk to a meeting without getting into trouble." The executives joined in the laughter, their sounds echoing cruelly through the space. Maya felt her cheeks burn even more intensely and wanted to disappear through the marble floor. "Look at the state you're in," Richard continued, approaching with the malicious smile Maya had learned to fear during her 2 years working at the company. "You couldn't even discipline a janitor." Ethan felt a wave of anger rise in his chest, but kept his expression neutral. "As I said, it was an accident, Richard."
"An accident that made you look like a beggar?" one of the executives commented, provoking more laughter. Maya wanted to apologize again, offer to pay for the suit's cleaning, anything to end this public humiliation. But the words stuck in her throat as she watched the cruel dynamic unfold before her. "Come on, Ethan," Richard said, still smiling. "The meeting already started. I'm sure Mom will love to know why you're even later." Ethan looked one last time at Maya, who kept her eyes fixed on the floor, her fists clenched at her sides. There was something in her posture, proud despite the humiliation, dignified even in the embarrassing situation, that touched him unexpectedly. "Excuse me," he murmured to her, and Maya managed to lift her eyes long enough to see something like an apology in his expression before he followed Richard toward the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, Maya stood alone in the lobby, surrounded by puddles of soapy water and the echo of cruel laughter still reverberating in her ears. She spent the next 40 minutes obsessively cleaning every drop of water, every soap bubble, trying to erase any evidence of the most humiliating moment of her professional life. Meanwhile, in the mahogany-paneled conference room on the 42nd floor, Elizabeth Cross presided over the family meeting with the erect posture of someone who had transformed a family business into a multi-billion-dollar empire. When Ethan entered, still with damp stains visible on his suit, the silence in the room was instantly replaced by poorly disguised laughter. "Ethan, dear," Elizabeth said with that tone of forced patience he'd known since childhood, "could you explain to us why you're wet?" Richard didn't miss the opportunity. Our youngest heir had a small encounter with the janitor in the lobby. Apparently, she managed to knock him down with a bucket of water. The room exploded in laughter. The executive directors, middle-aged men who had spent decades flattering the Cross family, laughed as if it were the funniest thing they'd ever heard. "Seriously?" asked James Morrison, the financial director. "You couldn't even punish the employee?" "Why would I punish someone for an accident?" Ethan retorted, sitting in his chair with more force than necessary. "Because that's how you maintain discipline," Richard replied, his smile becoming sharper. "Employees need to know their place." Elizabeth leaned forward, her hands elegantly intertwined on the table. "Ethan, dear, do you want me to have the girl fired? It would be a good lesson for other employees about the importance of care." "No," Ethan said, quickly, perhaps too quickly. "There's no need for that." "Of course there isn't," Richard said with irony. "Ethan has always been very tolerant of incompetence." "It wasn't incompetence," Ethan insisted. "It was a genuine accident." "Ah, yes," said Margaret Patterson, the Human Resources Director, joining the conversation. "These low-level employees are all walking accidents. That's why they are where they are." "Exactly," Morrison agreed. "If they had competence for something more, they wouldn't be cleaning floors." Ethan felt the familiar wave of frustration rise in his chest. It was always like this in family meetings. Any situation became an opportunity to demonstrate superiority over employees, as if human value were determined exclusively by bank account balance. "Maybe," he said slowly, "you're underestimating people's potential." Richard arched an eyebrow. "How so?" "I mean, maybe there are hidden talents at all levels of the company, people who never had the opportunity to show what they're capable of." The room fell silent for a moment, as if Ethan had suggested something completely absurd. "Ethan," Elizabeth said carefully, "are you suggesting that our janitors could, run board meetings?" "I'm suggesting that intelligence and potential aren't exclusive privileges of the wealthy. I'm suggesting that maybe people like that woman in the lobby have ideas, creativity, solutions we never considered because we're too busy seeing them as walking accidents." Richard laughed loudly. "Are you serious? You think a janitor could contribute significantly to Cross Industries' business? I think any person, given the right opportunity, could surprise us." "How romantic," commented Margaret dryly. "But this is the real world, Ethan. Hierarchies exist for a reason."
"What if I could prove otherwise?" Ethan asked, the idea forming in his mind like a lightning bolt of inspiration. "How?" Richard asked, his interest clearly aroused by the possibility of seeing his brother fail publicly. Ethan leaned forward, feeling the adrenaline of determination coursing through his veins. A contest, open to all employees at all levels, an innovation project that could genuinely benefit the company. "And you think someone from, let's say, general services could compete with our engineers and analysts?" Morrison asked, barely able to contain his laughter. I think if we give the same opportunities and resources, we might be surprised by the results. Elizabeth observed her youngest son with that expression he'd known since childhood. Part admiration for his passion, part exasperation at his naivety. "And what would be the prize of this contest?" she asked. "Promotion to a project development position, significant salary increase, and the chance to implement the winning idea," Ethan said, improvising as he spoke. "Real resources to make a real difference."
Richard leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. Interesting. And if no one from a low level can compete adequately? Then you were right all along, and I admit I was wrong, Ethan admitted. And if someone succeeds, Elizabeth asked, then maybe it's time to rethink how we see our employees. Richard clapped his hands on the table, clearly delighted with the prospect. "I accept this bet, little brother. 6 months. You take any general services employee and try to turn them into a significant contributor to the company." "Not any employee," Ethan corrected. "An open contest. Let them apply themselves and show what they're capable of." "Even better," Richard agreed. "When your protégés fail miserably, maybe you'll finally understand how the real world works." "And if they don't fail?" Ethan challenged. Richard laughed. "If any cleaning, maintenance, or security employee can create something genuinely valuable for this company, I'll publicly acknowledge I was wrong. But when that doesn't happen, you stop with these romantic ideas about human potential and assume your real responsibilities in this family."
Ethan extended his hand. "Deal." Richard shook his brother's hand, his grip firm and challenging. "Deal. I can't wait to see you fail." As the contest details were discussed, criteria, deadlines, available resources, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the woman in the lobby. There was something in her eyes, an intelligence that shone even amid humiliation, that made him believe his intuition was right. When the meeting ended and the contest terms were officially established, Ethan went down to the lobby hoping to find Maya still there. But the area was impeccably clean, with no sign of the accident or the woman who had, unknowingly, inspired a revolution at Cross Industries. He didn't know that Maya had spent the last 40 minutes obsessively cleaning every drop of water, every soap bubble, trying to erase any evidence of the most humiliating moment of her professional life. And he definitely didn't know that she had overheard every word of the cruel laughter that echoed from the elevator, or that she had spent the rest of the day wondering if she would be fired for having attacked one of the company's heirs. What Ethan knew as he went back up to his office was that something had changed that morning. The image of the brown-eyed woman with dignified posture was engraved in his mind, and for the first time in years, he felt truly motivated to prove a point. He just didn't realize yet that the point he was trying to prove would quickly transform into the discovery of the love of his life. 3 days passed since the accident, and Maya had become a master in the art of disappearing. She knew every corridor, every service stairway, every alternative route in Cross Industries, like a ghost haunting the floors without ever being seen. When she saw Ethan approaching down the main hallway, she would quickly turn to the emergency staircase. When he entered the elevator, she took the stairs. When he passed through the lobby, she hid behind columns or disappeared into the nearest woman's restroom. It wasn't just shame from the accident, though that still burned her cheeks whenever she remembered the cruel laughter. It was something deeper, the disturbing awareness that in the few seconds their eyes had met that morning, something had changed inside her. Maya Santos wasn't naive. At 24, she had dated enough to know the difference between physical attraction and something deeper. But she had never felt that specific sensation, as if the ground had moved beneath her feet, as if the air had become harder to breathe. Ethan Cross wasn't just rich. Rich was the CEO of the company where she had worked before, or the restaurant customers where she worked part-time on weekends. Ethan Cross was another category entirely. He was part of business royalty,
someone who appeared in society magazines, someone whose surname was literally engraved in the lobby marble. And she was a janitor who had soaked him with cleaning water. The math didn't work at all. That's why she ran. Every time she saw those perfectly tousled bemoan hair or heard the educated voice echoing through the corridors, Maya felt her heart race and her feet automatically seek the nearest escape route. The problem was that Ethan had started to notice.
Ethan wasn't stupid. After the third time Maya literally disappeared when he turned a corner, he began to suspect it wasn't coincidence. The third time confirmed his suspicions. He clearly saw her organizing a cleaning cart, concentrated posture while arranging supplies. Ethan slowed his pace, waiting for the right moment to approach and, perhaps, properly apologize for his family's behavior. But the second Maya looked up and saw him walking toward her, her eyes widened like those of a frightened animal. She literally abandoned the cart in the middle of the hallway and disappeared through the nearest emergency door, her footsteps echoing in the stairwell like someone fleeing from a predator. Ethan stood in the empty hallway, looking at the door through which she had disappeared, and a strange sensation settled in his chest. Was she afraid of him? The idea bothered him more than it should. Ethan was used to all kinds of female reactions to his presence, from the calculated interest of socialites to the shy admiration of younger employees. But genuine fear? That was new, and strangely, it made him want more than ever to talk to her. During the following days, Ethan found himself paying attention to things he had never noticed before. The cleaning shift schedules, the routes that general service employees used, the moments Maya appeared and disappeared through the corridors like an efficient ghost. He began to mentally map her patterns. Always arrived at 7 in the morning, started with the lobby, went up the floors systematically, took a lunch break at 12:30 in the employee rest area in the basement. It was too much information to be casual. Ethan had to admit to himself that he was somehow inexplicably obsessed with the woman who fled from him as if he were contagious. The idea came on a rainy Wednesday, when Ethan found himself once again looking at an emergency door through which Maya had just disappeared. If she insisted on running every time she saw him coming, maybe it was time to change strategy. Instead of chasing her through the corridors like a predator, maybe he could surprise her. Not in a scary way. The last thing he wanted was to traumatize the woman further. But maybe, if he could appear when she had no escape route available, he could finally have the conversation he'd been trying to have for a week. Ethan knew Cross Industries like the palm of his hand. He had grown up exploring every floor, every room, every hidden corner of the building during the afternoons he spent there after school. He knew there were only 2 places where Maya paused during the day: the small terrace on the 15th floor, used only by cleaning staff to dry cloths and store equipment, and the rest area in the basement. The terrace would be perfect. Isolated, no security cameras, and, most importantly, no other exit routes besides the door she had entered through. On the following Thursday, Ethan put his plan into action. Maya pushed open the 15th floor terrace door, balancing a stack of clean cloths that needed to air dry. It was her favorite moment of the day. 15 minutes of relative peace, away from judgmental stares and busy corridors. The terrace was small, surrounded by a low wall that offered a partial view of the city. It wasn't luxurious like the executive terraces on the upper floors, but it had something Maya valued more than elegance: privacy. She began hanging the cloths on the improvised clothesline, taking advantage of the gentle afternoon breeze to relax her tense shoulders. She had managed to spend the entire morning without any Ethan Cross sightings, which meant her escape instincts were working perfectly. It was when she finished hanging the last cloth that she heard the voice behind her. "Please don't run." Maya froze. Her hands still held the corners of the cloth she had just hung, but the rest of her body had turned to stone. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That educated voice, with its gentle and slightly amused tone, had haunted her thoughts for a week.
Slowly, as if moving through molasses, Maya turned around. Ethan stood at the terrace entrance, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other hidden behind his back. He wore a light blue dress shirt that highlighted his green eyes, and there was something in his expression that was simultaneously determined and nervous. "I know you've been avoiding me," Ethan said, taking a cautious step into the terrace. "And I know you probably have a good reason for it." Maya felt her cheeks burn. "I wasn't. You were," he interrupted, but his tone was gentle, almost amused. "And you've been very creative about it. I must admit I was impressed with your escape routes." Despite her nervousness, Maya felt a small smile want to form on her lips. "I know the building well." "Apparently, better than I do," Ethan admitted. "And look, I grew up here." They stood in silence for a moment, Maya still ready to flee, Ethan clearly trying to find the right words. "I wanted to apologize," he said finally, "for my family's behavior on Monday. What they did was cruel and unnecessary." "You don't need to—" "Ethan," he corrected her, "please. And I do need to. No one should have gone through that humiliation, especially not because of an accident that wasn't even your fault." Maya studied him for a moment, looking for signs of falseness or condescension, but there was something genuine in his green eyes, a sincerity that made her lower her guard slightly. "Thank you," she said quietly. "And I brought something for you," Ethan continued, finally bringing forward the hand that was hidden behind his back. In his hand was a small box of chocolates, not the expensive chocolates he was probably used to giving to women in his social circle, but a simple box of the brand that could be found in any pharmacy. "This is for you to stop running from me," he said, extending the box with a shy smile that completely transformed his face. "I'm not some boogeyman or big bad wolf, I promise." Maya looked at the box in his hands, then at his face, then back at the chocolates. It was such a simple gesture, so unexpectedly sweet, that she felt something tight form in her chest. "Chocolate," she murmured. "I figured everyone likes chocolate," Ethan said, suddenly looking insecure. "But if you don't like it, I can—" "I do," Maya interrupted quickly. "It's just— why?" Ethan studied her for a moment, as if trying to decipher a particularly complex puzzle. "Because," he said slowly, "you seem like someone who should smile more, and because I hate the idea that my family made you feel bad, and because—" He hesitated. "Honestly, I don't really know why. I just know I wanted to do this." Maya held the chocolate box between her hands, feeling its light weight as if it were something precious. No one had given her chocolate in— how long? Years, maybe. "Thank you," she said, and this time her voice came out stronger, more genuine. "You're welcome," Ethan replied. "And now that you know I'm not dangerous, maybe you can stop treating me like I'm carrying some contagious disease." Despite herself, Maya laughed. It was a small sound, almost muffled, but it was a genuine laugh. And the way Ethan's face lit up when he heard it made something strange happen in her stomach. "I'll try," she said. "Great," Ethan smiled. "Because honestly, your escape routes were starting to give me an inferiority complex." Maya laughed again, this time a little louder, and Ethan felt as if he had just won some kind of prize. "Well," he said, taking a step toward the door, "I'll let you get back to work. But I hope next time we meet, you won't disappear like magic." "I don't promise anything," Maya said, but there was a note of playfulness in her voice that hadn't been there before. Ethan smiled. "Fair enough." He was almost at the door when he turned one last time. "By the way," he said, "my name is Ethan Cross. I thought you should know, since apparently we're going to stop playing hide and seek." "Maya," she replied without thinking. "Maya Santos." "Maya," he repeated, and the way her name sounded on his lips made her heart skip a beat. "It's a beautiful name." And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone on the terrace with a box of chocolates and a strange warm feeling spreading through her chest. She looked at the box in her hands and, for the first time in a week, smiled genuinely. Maybe she could stop running, at least for now. In the days that followed, something fundamental changed in the dynamic between Maya and Ethan. She no longer ran when she saw him in the corridors. Instead, she offered a small nod when their paths crossed, or a murmured good morning that he always returned with that smile that made strange things happen in her stomach. Ethan, in turn, discovered he was actively looking for these small moments. He began timing his walks through the corridors with Maya's work schedules, always hoping for the small wave or the shy smile she sometimes offered him. It was the beginning of something. Neither Ethan nor Maya knew exactly what, but both felt the change in the air like electricity before a storm. And somewhere, on the upper floors of Cross Industries, Richard Cross was beginning to notice that his younger brother was acting different, more distracted, more absent from the parties and social gatherings he used to frequent. Interesting.
1 week after the terrace encounter, posters appeared throughout Cross Industries. Innovation contest open to all employees. Anonymous submissions using pseudonyms. Deadline, 6 months. The prize included promotion and implementation of the winning idea. Maya read the announcement 3 times before fully understanding. Any employee could participate. Any hierarchical level. She folded the flyer and tucked it into her pocket, her mind already spinning with possibilities she was afraid to acknowledge. "You going to enter?" asked Carlos, her cleaning colleague, as they organized supplies in the basement storage room. "Me?" Maya laughed nervously. "I don't have the background for that." "You've always had brilliant ideas," insisted Anna, another cleaning staff member. "Remember that system you created to optimize our work on the floors? Saved 2 hours a day for each of us. That was just basic organization." "It was genius," Carlos said. "You should try." Maya shook her head, but kept the contest flyer. That night, alone in her modest apartment, she spread her administration textbooks across the small kitchen table and began sketching ideas. She had been thinking about hospital cleaning optimization for months, a system that could revolutionize infection control using simple technology that any facility could afford. 2 weeks later, Maya sat at that same kitchen table, staring at the completed application form. Under pseudonym, she wrote, "Phoenix." Like a phoenix, she thought, rising from the ashes of her limitations. She submitted the application on the last day, when no one was watching. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Maya. After the chocolate incident, she had stopped running, but still maintained respectful distance. Small nods, shy smiles, a few polite words. It was progress, but he wanted more. He began noticing details that had previously gone unnoticed. How she organized her work with military efficiency. How other employees sought her advice. How she studied during breaks. Always books about hospital administration and process optimization. The first accidental encounter happened on a Thursday. Maya was leaving Cross Industries when she saw Ethan standing on the sidewalk, looking lost. "Problems?" she asked before she could stop herself. Ethan turned, surprised and clearly pleased. "My driver canceled last minute. I'm trying to get a taxi." "Rush hour," Maya said. "It'll take a while. You know another way to get downtown?" Maya hesitated. "Subway. Faster at this time." "I've never used the subway," Ethan admitted, looking embarrassed. "Want me to show you?" That's how they found themselves in the crowded subway car, Maya explaining the transportation system while Ethan listened fascinated. Not by the train logistics, but by the way she spoke. Intelligent, clear, without condescension. "Thank you," he said when they reached downtown. "That was educational."
You're welcome, Maya smiled. Good luck with your appointment. The second encounter was at a small neighborhood cafe where Maya was studying when Ethan walked in. She almost hid by instinct, but he had already seen her. Maya? What a coincidence. Hello? She said nervously. May I? He gestured to the empty chair. Maya nodded, heart racing. They talked for an hour. Ethan discovered Maya was studying administration at night. Maya discovered Ethan had traveled the world but never ridden public transportation. It's strange, he said as they prepared to leave. What? Talking to someone who doesn't want anything from me, besides conversation. Maya felt something tight in her chest. Maybe you're talking to the wrong people. The third encounter was at a public library. Maya was researching her project when Ethan appeared. Following me? She joked, but there was real nervousness in the question. I swear I'm not, Ethan laughed. I'm researching how other companies treat employees at different levels. For the contest? To understand if I'm right or crazy. They studied together in comfortable silence. Maya worked on research about hospital optimization. Ethan read about innovative business practices. Occasionally, they exchanged glances that lasted a second longer than they should. Can I ask something? Ethan said as they left the library. Sure. Why do you work so hard? Study, work, more study. When do you rest? Maya stopped walking. Rest is a luxury I can't afford. Everyone needs rest. Everyone has rich families to fund their rest, Maya said without bitterness, just fact. Ethan fell silent. Then, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound condescending. You didn't. It's just different realities. Tell me about your reality, he said gently. And Maya told him. About her sick father, her sister in school, dreams of having her own clinic someday. She spoke without self-pity, just explaining her life with the same clarity she'd explained the subway system. Ethan listened to every word, feeling something new grow in his chest. It wasn't pity, it was pure admiration for someone who fought with dignity for their goals. That night, Maya lay in her small bed in her modest apartment and finally admitted to herself she was falling in love with Ethan Cross. Not for the money, she barely thought about that when they talked, but for the way he really listened, how he asked intelligent questions, how he treated waiters and bus drivers with the same respect he treated executives. It was dangerous. It was impossible. It was inevitable. Ethan, meanwhile, was canceling another social dinner, this time a charity gala where he should appear with some suitable socialite. Are you sure? His assistant asked. Your mother won't like it. I'm sure. Instead, he walked through Maya's neighborhood, not to look for her, just to better understand her world. He saw children playing in the street, families dining in small apartments, people working hard for small pleasures. For the first time in his life, he questioned whether his wealth had made him poorer in aspects that mattered. The changes in Ethan were subtle, but noticeable to those who knew him well.
You didn't go out with Melissa yesterday? His friend Trevor asked during lunch. I canceled, Ethan said distractedly. Why? She's beautiful. She is, Ethan agreed, but without enthusiasm. Just wasn't in the mood. Trevor studied him. You've been acting strange lately, less party-oriented. Ethan shrugged. The truth was that parties and casual encounters had lost their shine. He preferred staying home thinking about conversations with a certain janitor than spending the night in expensive clubs listening to empty talk. In the fifth casual encounter, at a small diner far from both their worlds, the chemistry between them was undeniable. Have you ever thought, Maya said, stirring her coffee, that maybe life is simpler than we complicate it? How so? People are people. Dreams are dreams.
The rest is circumstance. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. The chestnut hair loose in soft waves, the intelligent eyes, the mouth that smiled easily when he made bad jokes. She was beautiful in a way no fashion magazine could capture. "Maya?" he said softly. "Yes?" For a moment it seemed he was going to say something important. Then he shook his head. "Nothing, I just like talking to you." But his eyes said much more, and Maya understood every unspoken word. Love was growing between them, silent and inevitable as dawn, and somewhere in Cross Industries, Richard Cross was beginning to piece together a puzzle. He didn't like what he saw. 2 months into their careful dance of accidental encounters, the inevitable finally happened. Maya was leaving the small bookstore where she had been buying textbooks when a sudden downpour caught her without an umbrella. She pressed herself against the store's entrance, watching the rain create rivers in the street, when a familiar voice made her heart skip. "Need a ride?" Ethan stood under a large black umbrella, his hair slightly damp from the few steps he'd taken from his parked car. The BMW sat at the curb, elegant and expensive, a stark reminder of the different worlds they inhabited. "I can wait for it to stop," Maya said, though the rain showed no signs of letting up. "Maya," Ethan said gently, "it's pouring. Let me drive you home." The car ride started in comfortable silence, the sound of rain against windows creating an intimate cocoon. Maya gave directions to her neighborhood, acutely aware of how her simple apartment building would look to someone who lived in penthouses. "I can drop me at the corner," she said as they approached her street. "I'll take you to your door," he replied, and something in his tone made her not argue. When he pulled up in front of her building, he didn't immediately unlock the doors. Instead, he turned to face her, and Maya felt the familiar electricity that had been building between them for weeks. "Maya," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "These encounters, they're not as accidental as I've been pretending." Maya's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been hoping to run into you, looking for excuses to be where you might be. I can't stop thinking about you." The confession hung between them in the quiet car, rain drumming on the roof like a heartbeat. Maya looked at his face, the honest green eyes, the vulnerable expression she'd never seen before, and felt her careful walls crumble. "Ethan," she whispered. He reached out, his fingers barely touching her cheek. "I know this is complicated. I know we're from different worlds. But I can't pretend anymore that I don't feel something for you." Maya closed her eyes at his touch. "I feel it too." "Maya." Her name was a prayer on his lips as he leaned closer. The kiss was inevitable as sunrise, soft at first, questioning, then deeper as Maya's hand found the back of his neck and she pulled him closer. It tasted like rain and possibility, like everything Maya had been afraid to want and everything Ethan had been searching for without knowing. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Maya rested her forehead against his, their breath mingling in the small space. "This changes everything," she whispered. "I know," Ethan replied. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Me too." But when he kissed her again, neither of them cared about the complications. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened in stolen moments. Ethan would text Maya from secure phones, suggesting meetings at neutral locations. They found a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood neither frequented, where they could sit in back booths and talk for hours. They discovered a hiking trail outside the city, where they could walk hand in hand without worrying about being seen. Maya learned that beneath Ethan's privileged exterior was a man genuinely struggling with his place in the world. He told her about the pressure to conform to family expectations, about business deals that kept him awake at night because they felt morally wrong, about the loneliness of never knowing if people liked him for himself or his bank account. Ethan learned that Maya's strength came from necessity, but was rooted in genuine compassion. She spoke about her dreams not with the entitlement he was used to from his social circle, but with the careful hope of someone who had learned that dreams required both hard work and luck. She wanted to revolutionize hospital cleaning not for glory or money, but because she had watched her father struggle with hospital-acquired infections and knew other families faced the same fight. "Sometimes I think you're the only real thing in my life," Ethan told her one evening as they sat in his car overlooking the city lights. "I'm real," Maya said, threading her fingers through his. "This is real." But their secret was becoming harder to maintain. Ethan's behavior changes were too obvious to ignore. He declined social invitations with increasing frequency. He seemed distracted during business meetings. Most tellingly, he had stopped his pattern of casual dating that had been as regular as clockwork since his early 20s.
Richard Cross was not a stupid man. During a family dinner at the Cross estate, he studied his younger brother with calculating eyes. "You seem different, Ethan," Richard observed over the main course. "More settled." "Do I?" Ethan tried to keep his voice neutral. "Are you seeing someone?" their mother asked with the hopeful tone she used whenever she thought one of her sons might be considering marriage to a suitable woman. "I'm always seeing someone, Mother." "Anyone serious?" Richard pressed. "Define serious." Elizabeth Cross leaned forward with interest. "Someone from our circle? The Morrison girl has been asking about you. Or perhaps Catherine Whitman. Her father owns half of downtown." "No one you know," Ethan said, and immediately regretted the admission. Richard's smile was sharp. "How mysterious. Our little brother has a secret romance." "It's not a secret, it's just private." "Of course," Richard agreed, but his eyes held a calculating gleam that Ethan recognized and disliked. The next Monday, Richard made a phone call to a private investigation firm he had used before for sensitive company matters. "I need discreet surveillance on my brother," he told the voice on the other end. "I want to know where he goes, who he sees, what he does when he's not at the office." "Duration of surveillance?" "Until I tell you to stop." Within 2 days, professional watchers were documenting Ethan's movements. They photographed him entering the small Italian restaurant. They followed him to the hiking trail. They noted the make and model of Maya's bus when she met him at neutral locations. It took less than a week for Richard to have a complete dossier on Maya Santos: age, address, employment history, family situation, and academic pursuits. What he found was simultaneously better and worse than he had feared. Better, because she clearly wasn't a gold digger. Her behavior suggested genuine affection rather than calculated interest in Ethan's wealth. Worse, because genuine affection meant this wasn't a casual fling that would burn out naturally. Richard studied the surveillance photos spread across his home office desk. His brother kissing a janitor in a parked car. His brother holding hands with an employee as they walked through woods. His brother looking at a woman with an expression Richard had never seen before: complete, unguarded happiness. "Interesting," Richard murmured to himself. This complicated his plans for the contest considerably. If Ethan was emotionally involved with one of the participants, and Richard was certain Maya must be participating, given the contest's timing with their relationship, then the bet became more than professional pride. It became personal. Richard picked up his phone and dialed the private investigator again. "I need you to expand the surveillance. I want to know everything about Maya Santos, her routines, her habits, her vulnerabilities. And I want photographic evidence of every interaction between her and my brother." "Understood, sir." "And," Richard added with a cold smile, "I want to know if she's participating in the company innovation contest."
Meanwhile, Maya was working late in the Cross Industries basement, perfecting her contest submission. She had no idea that cameras with telephoto lenses were documenting her every move, building a case that would soon threaten everything she had found with Ethan. The project consumed her evenings and weekends. Her hospital cleaning optimization system was evolving into something genuinely revolutionary, a comprehensive approach that could reduce infection rates by 30% while cutting costs. She worked with the focused intensity of someone who knew this might be her only chance to prove herself. As she typed the final pages of her submission, Maya allowed herself a moment of hope. Win or lose, she had created something she was proud of. And regardless of what happened with the contest, she had found love with a man who saw her as an equal, who valued her mind as much as her heart. She had no way of knowing that her love story was about to become a weapon in a family war she never wanted to join.
The contest results were announced on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Maya arrived at work early, as always, but noticed an unusual buzz of excitement throughout the building. Employees gathered in small groups, whispering about the innovation contest winner. The announcement would be made at 10 o'clock in the main auditorium. Maya tried to focus on her cleaning duties, but nervous energy made her hands shake as she polished surfaces that didn't need polishing. She had submitted her hospital optimization system under the pseudonym Phoenix 3 months ago and had tried not to hope too much. Hope was dangerous for someone in her position. At 9:55, she found herself lingering near the auditorium, telling herself she was just cleaning the area. The room filled with employees from every level of Cross Industries, executives in expensive suits, mingling uneasily with maintenance staff and administrative assistants. Richard Cross took the stage with his characteristic confident smile. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cross Industries Innovation Contest has exceeded all our expectations. We received over 200 submissions from employees across all departments and levels. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. The winning project, Richard continued, represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking we hoped to discover. It's a comprehensive hospital cleaning optimization system that could revolutionize infection control while reducing costs by 40%. The creator of this groundbreaking work is, he paused dramatically, Phoenix. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The pseudonym meant nothing to most people, but Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Will Phoenix please come forward to claim their prize?
Maya stood frozen. She had won. She had actually won. Around her, employees looked at each other with confusion, everyone wondering who Phoenix was. With legs that felt like water, Maya slowly made her way toward the stage. The crowd parted as she walked, whispers following in her wake. The janitor? Is she Phoenix? This can't be right. As Maya climbed the steps to the stage, Richard's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. He had expected this, of course. The surveillance had confirmed Maya's contest participation weeks ago. Congratulations, Maya Santos, our Phoenix, Richard said, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium microphone. The applause was scattered and uncertain. Maya accepted the ceremonial check and trophy with trembling hands, unable to believe this was really happening. Miss Santos will be promoted immediately to head of process optimization with a starting salary of $80,000 annually, plus the budget to implement her revolutionary system across our partner hospitals. But as she looked out at the crowd, she saw Ethan standing near the back of the auditorium. His face showed pure pride and joy, and he was applauding enthusiastically despite the suspicious looks from other executives around him. Their eyes met across the room, and Maya saw him mouth the words, "I knew it." That should have been her moment of triumph. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. The trap Richard had spent weeks preparing sprang shut that very afternoon. Maya was in her new temporary office, a real office with a window and a door that closed, trying to process the magnitude of her life change when Richard appeared in her doorway. "Miss Santos, congratulations again on your remarkable achievement." "Thank you, Mr. Cross. I wonder if we might have a private conversation about your relationship with my brother." Maya's blood turned to ice. "I'm sorry?" Richard stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. From his briefcase, he withdrew a manila folder thick with photographs. "I think you'll find these interesting," he said, spreading the photos across her new desk. Maya stared in horror at images of herself and Ethan, kissing in his car, holding hands on hiking trails, laughing together in the small Italian restaurant. Weeks of private moments, captured and documented. "How?" she whispered. "The how doesn't matter. What matters is what we do now." Richard's voice was calm, almost conversational. "You see, Maya, may I call you Maya? We have a problem. Your relationship with Ethan creates complications regarding your contest victory." "I won on merit," Maya said, finding her voice. "The submissions were anonymous." "Were they? Are you certain Ethan didn't know which project was yours? Are you certain he didn't influence the judging process?" "He didn't know I was participating." "Can you prove that?" Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. How could she prove something that was true but looked suspicious? "Here's what's going to happen," Richard continued. "Tomorrow morning, I'm calling a press conference. I'm going to announce that the contest results are under investigation due to potential impropriety between a judge's family member and a contestant. Ethan wasn't a judge. Ethan is a cross. In the public mind, that's the same thing." Richard leaned forward. "Your victory will be questioned. Your promotion will be suspended. Your relationship will be front-page news in every business publication in the country." Maya felt sick. "What do you want?" "I want you to make a choice. You can deny any romantic relationship with Ethan Cross. You can claim any suggestion of impropriety is false. You can keep your victory, your promotion, your family's security." Richard's smile was cold. "Or you can tell the truth about your relationship and watch everything you've worked for disappear. Your choice." "And if I choose Ethan? Then you lose everything. The promotion, the salary, the recognition. You'll be painted as a woman who seduced her way to success and then brazenly admitted it. Your family will suffer the consequences of your romantic choices." Maya stared at the photographs scattered across her desk. Her new life, her family's security, her professional dreams, all of it balanced against her love for Ethan. "I need time to think. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. The press conference is at 10. That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at the contest trophy on her kitchen table. When Ethan arrived, she showed him the photographs without saying a word. "That bastard," Ethan breathed, his face flushing with anger. "We'll fight this. We'll prove your project won on merit." "How? It looks suspicious, Ethan. Even to me, it looks suspicious." "Maya, you are the most brilliant, capable person I know. Your project deserved to win." "But no one will believe that now." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "They'll think I slept my way to success. Then we'll weather the storm together." Maya looked at him, this beautiful man who had never faced real consequences for anything in his life, and felt her heart break and soar simultaneously. "Ethan," she said gently, "I love you. I love you too. I love you enough to choose you over everything else." The next morning, Maya stood at the podium in the Cross Industries press room, cameras flashing, reporters scribbling notes. She looked directly into the cameras and spoke the words that felt like both poison and medicine in her mouth. "I want to address the rumors about my relationship with Ethan Cross." Her voice was steady despite her trembling hands. "The truth is, I am deeply in love with him. We have been in a relationship for months. However, I want to categorically state that this relationship had no bearing on my contest victory. Ethan never knew I was participating, never saw my submission, never influenced the judging process." The room erupted. Cameras flashed frantically. Reporters shouted questions. "I am willing to forfeit my prize," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "I am willing to give up the promotion, the recognition, everything. Because I will not deny my love for a man who sees me as an equal, who values my mind as much as my heart, who makes me want to be the best version of myself." In the back of the room, Ethan watched the woman he loved choose him over everything she had worked for, and felt something break apart inside his chest. She was sacrificing her dreams for him, and he had never felt more proud or more terrified in his life. "I know this decision will cost me everything I've earned," Maya concluded, tears finally falling. "But some things are worth more than career advancement. Love, real, honest, transformative love is one of them." As Maya stepped away from the podium, forfeiting the future she had fought so hard to build, Richard Cross smiled in the shadows. Everything was going exactly according to plan. In the days following Maya's devastating press conference, Ethan existed in a state of rage that surprised even him. Not rage at Maya, never at Maya, but fury at himself, at his family, at a world that had forced the woman he loved to choose between her dreams and their relationship. "How could you let her do that?" he shouted at his reflection in his penthouse bathroom mirror. "How could you let her sacrifice everything for you?" Maya had gone into hiding after forfeiting her prize. She wouldn't answer his calls, wouldn't see him, had apparently disappeared from her apartment. Through mutual acquaintances, he learned she was staying with a friend across town, working at a small medical supply store to pay rent. The brilliant woman who should have been revolutionizing hospital systems was back to stocking shelves. The guilt was eating him alive. "She destroyed her life for you," he told himself repeatedly. "The most incredible opportunity she'll ever have, and she threw it away because she loves you." His family, predictably, was pleased with the outcome. During a family dinner 3 days after the press conference, Elizabeth actually smiled. "I'm glad that unfortunate situation resolved itself," she said, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. "Though I do think the girls showed remarkable loyalty." "Loyalty?" Ethan's voice was dangerously quiet. "Well, yes. Choosing love over advancement shows a certain romantic sensibility. Foolish, perhaps, but romantic." Richard laughed. "Romantic? She's unemployed and unemployable. No one will hire someone who admitted to an inappropriate workplace relationship." Something in Richard's tone made Ethan look up sharply. There was too much satisfaction there, too much smugness for someone who had merely been proven right about employee potential. "You're enjoying this," Ethan said slowly. "I'm enjoying watching you learn about consequences. Actions have results, Ethan. Inappropriate relationships damage everyone involved." Maya's relationship with me was not inappropriate. The public disagrees. The public doesn't know her. No, Richard agreed, his smile turning sharp. They don't, but they know what they've been told. That night, unable to sleep, Ethan found himself in his office going through contest files. He told himself he was looking for evidence to clear Maya's name, to prove her victory had been legitimate. What he found instead was a trail of documents that made his blood turn cold. The original submission was there, under the pseudonym Phoenix, dated 3 months ago. But there were other documents, technical specifications, implementation plans, patent applications, all bearing Richard's name as primary inventor, and dated just 2 weeks after the contest deadline. Ethan stared at the papers spread across his desk, the implications crystallizing with horrible clarity. The contest, Maya's sacrifice, Richard's satisfaction, it all made sickening sense now. Richard hadn't just manipulated Maya into giving up her prize, he had stolen her work. The next morning, Ethan stormed into Richard's office without knocking. The patent application crumbled in his fist. "You bastard," he said, throwing the papers on Richard's desk. "You stole her project." Richard looked up calmly from his breakfast meeting with 2 Japanese investors. "Gentlemen, could you excuse us for a moment? Family business." When they were alone, Richard's mask dropped entirely. "I improved upon her basic concept, made it commercially viable. You stole it, word for word, diagram for diagram. I refined it, added the business framework necessary for real implementation. She developed everything, the core system, the efficiency metrics, the cost projections, all of it." Richard leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Can she prove that? Her submission was anonymous, remember, and now that she's publicly admitted to an inappropriate relationship with you, she can hardly claim intellectual property theft. Who would believe her? Ethan felt something fundamental break inside him. You destroyed her life for nothing. She gave up everything to protect me, and you stole her work anyway. I saved this family from scandal, and I proved my point about employee potential. They need proper guidance from their betters to achieve anything meaningful. You proved nothing except that you're a thief and a sociopath. Richard stood up, his composure finally cracking. I protected this company. That girl was a threat to everything we've built. That girl created something revolutionary, and you couldn't stand that she was smarter than you. That girl was sleeping with you to advance her career. That girl loved me, Ethan shouted. She loved me enough to give up her dreams rather than deny it. And you destroyed both of us because you're too insecure to admit when someone beneath your social class is better than you. The office fell silent. Richard's face was flushed with anger, but there was something else there, a flicker of uncertainty, as if he was finally realizing what he had actually done. It doesn't matter now, Richard said finally. It's done. She made her choice. She made her choice to protect me from you, and now I'm making mine. Ethan walked to Richard's window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Maya was probably working at that medical supply store. Her brilliant mind wasted on inventory and customer service, her dreams crushed by his family's cruelty. I'm leaving, Ethan said quietly. Don't be dramatic. You're upset, but you'll get over it. I'm leaving the company. I'm leaving the family business. I want nothing more to do with any of this. Richard laughed, but it sounded forced. You can't be serious. This is your inheritance, your birthright. My birthright is built on the destruction of good people. I want no part of it. Ethan, be reasonable. So you had a relationship with an employee. It happens. Move on. Find someone more suitable. Ethan turned from the window, and Richard actually stepped back at the cold fury in his younger brother's eyes. I'm going to find Maya. I'm going to tell her what you did. and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she gets the credit and compensation she deserves. You'll be cut off, disinherited. You'll have nothing. I'll have the truth. And maybe, if I'm very lucky and work very hard to earn it, I'll have her forgiveness for not protecting her better." Ethan walked toward the door, then stopped. "Oh, and Richard, the patent application you filed? Maya kept copies of all her original work. Notebooks, calculations, time-stamped research files. When this goes to court, and it will go to court, you're going to lose everything. You don't know what you're talking about. I know Maya. She's methodical, careful, brilliant. She documented everything because she grew up knowing people like you would try to steal from people like her." Ethan smiled grimly. "You may have destroyed our relationship temporarily, but you underestimated her completely. That's going to cost you everything you think you've won."
That afternoon, Ethan cleaned out his office while his assistant watched in shock. 20 years of his life packed into 3 boxes: awards, photos, the detritus of a career he no longer wanted. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Margaret asked. "Maybe you should take some time to think." "I've had enough time. This is the first clear decision I've made in my entire life." As he carried the last box to his car, Ethan felt lighter than he had in weeks. He had no job, no family support, and no idea if the woman he loved would ever speak to him again. But for the first time since that devastating press conference, he had hope. Maya deserved to know the truth. She deserved justice. And if there was any chance, even the smallest possibility, that she might forgive him for not being strong enough to protect her from his family's cruelty, then losing everything else would be worth it. He drove toward the medical supply store where Maya worked, his heart pounding and his future uncertain, but his purpose crystal clear. The Cross family had taken enough from both of them. It was time to fight back. Maya was stocking medical supplies when she saw him through the store window. 3 weeks of believing she'd never see Ethan Cross again, and suddenly there he was, standing on the sidewalk looking uncertain and heartbreakingly familiar. She considered hiding in the back room, but he had already seen her. The bell chimed as he entered, and Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Hello, Maya. What are you doing here?" Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I need to tell you something. About Richard. About your project. I don't want to hear it. I made my choice. Maya, please, he stole your work." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What?" "Richard filed patents for your hospital optimization system under his own name. He's claiming he developed it, taking full credit for your innovation." Maya gripped the edge of the shelf she'd been stocking. "That's impossible. He couldn't have known." "He had access to everything as contest administrator. Maya, I found the documents. Your original submission, his patent applications, the timeline, all of it. He stole your work and let you sacrifice everything to protect a relationship he was going to destroy anyway. Even if that's true, what does it matter now? I publicly admitted our relationship. I gave up the contest. No one will believe me if I claim—" "You have proof, Ethan. You kept copies of your work, didn't you? Development notes, research, timestamps?" Maya stared at him. She had kept everything: notebooks going back 6 months, research files, calculation sheets, even sketches of original concepts. A lifetime of cautiousness about protecting her work. "How did you know?" "Because I know you. You're methodical, careful, brilliant. You would have documented everything because you grew up knowing people like my family would try to steal from people like you." For the first time in weeks, Maya felt a spark of her old fire. "I have everything. Every calculation, every iteration, every breakthrough moment. Then we can prove it was your work. We can expose what Richard did." "We?"
Maya shook her head. There is no we, Ethan. I chose you over my career, remember? I chose love and I lost everything. You chose love, Ethan said fiercely, and that was the most courageous thing I've ever seen anyone do. But you shouldn't have had to choose. What Richard did was theft, Maya. Criminal theft. You don't understand. I have nothing now. No job prospects, no reputation, no future. You have everything, Ethan said passionately. You have integrity, brilliance, courage. You have the best mind I've ever encountered and the strongest heart I've ever known. Maya felt tears threaten. Ethan, I left Cross Industries. The words stopped her cold. What? I quit, walked away from everything, the company, the money, the family name, all of it. Why would you do that?
Because none of it means anything if it's built on destroying people like you. Because I'd rather be poor and honest than rich and complicit in what they did. But your inheritance, your future, my future is worthless without you in it. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes intense. Maya, I love you, not your potential, not your dreams, not what you could become with opportunity. I love you exactly as you are right now, stocking shelves and still being the most remarkable person I've ever met. I love you too, she whispered. I never stopped, even when I thought choosing you had ruined my life. Then let's fight this together. Let's get back what's yours. You really think we can win? I think you're Maya Santos, the woman who created a revolutionary hospital system while working as a janitor and studying at night. I think you're someone who chose love over security because you believe in something bigger than yourself. If anyone can win this fight, it's you. Maya looked at this man who had given up everything to stand with her and felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Okay, she said quietly. Let's fight.
The legal battle took 4 months and made headlines across the business world. Maya's meticulous documentation proved invaluable. Notebooks filled with calculations, research files with timestamps, even sketches showing the evolution of her ideas. Ethan hired the best intellectual property lawyers money could buy, funding the case with the sale of his personal assets. Richard fought viciously, using every resource of Cross Industries to discredit Maya's claims. But the evidence was overwhelming. Not only had Maya documented her work meticulously, but her study group from night school remembered her presenting early versions of the system months before the contest deadline. The breakthrough came when Maya's lawyers subpoenaed Richard's computer files. Despite his attempts to delete evidence, digital forensics recovered emails between Richard and the private investigators, detailing not just surveillance of Maya and Ethan's relationship, but specific instructions to document Maya's work habits and project development so he could improve upon employee contributions. The defendant didn't just steal Miss Santos's intellectual property, Maya's lawyer argued in court. He orchestrated an elaborate scheme to manipulate her personal life, force her to forfeit her rightful recognition, and then claim her revolutionary work as his own creation. The judge's ruling was swift and unequivocal. Richard Cross was ordered to transfer all patents to Maya Santos, pay substantial damages for theft of intellectual property, and issue a public apology acknowledging her as the sole creator of the hospital optimization system. More importantly, Maya's reputation was fully restored. The same business publications that had questioned her romantic choices now ran front-page stories about the brilliant innovator who'd been robbed by corporate greed and personal vindictiveness.
6 months after the judgment, Maya stood in the lobby of Santos Medical Solutions, her own company, funded by the lawsuit settlement and partnerships with major hospital chains. The same aquarium where their love story began sat in her reception area,
a reminder of how far they had both traveled. Ethan found her there, reviewing contracts for implementation of her system in hospitals across 3 states. "How does it feel?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Surreal," Maya admitted, leaning back against his chest. "Sometimes I can't believe this is real." "It's real," Ethan murmured against her hair. "You're real. We're real. Justice is real." Maya turned in his arms, studying the face she loved more than she had ever thought possible. "Do you ever regret it? Giving up everything you were raised to inherit?" "Every day," Ethan said solemnly. Maya's heart clenched, until he smiled and continued. "Every day I regret not doing it sooner. I regret every moment I spent in that world when I could have been building this one with you from the beginning." "And your family?" "My mother is slowly coming around. She's proud, in her way, of what you've accomplished. She even asked about investing in Santos Medical Solutions." Ethan's expression darkened. "Richard is facing criminal charges for corporate espionage and intellectual property theft. His pride finally caught up with him."
Maya rose on her toes to kiss him softly. "I love you, Ethan Cross. Formerly rich, currently employed by me, Ethan Cross." "Actually," Ethan said with a grin, "I was hoping you'd marry me and let me take your name. Santos has a much better reputation in the business world these days." "Santos?" "Well, I'm only proposing because I'm desperately attracted to brilliant women who revolutionize entire industries," he said, pulling her closer. "Fair warning, though, I come with no money, no family support, and a tendency to fall in love with women who are smarter than me." Maya laughed, the sound echoing through the lobby of the company she had built from stolen dreams reclaimed through courage and love. "I suppose I could consider it," she said, pulling him down for another kiss. "After all, I have a thing for men who believe the impossible can become inevitable." Outside, the city hummed with endless possibility, and Maya Santos, soon to be Maya Santos Cross, they had decided, knew that sometimes the best love stories began with accidents, grew through obstacles, and ended with the triumph of truth over power. Their reflections smiled back at them from the aquarium glass, and Maya could swear the fish looked pleased with how beautifully their story had turned out.
Your heart knows the way. Subscribe and follow the beauty.